So, Ev, we're zooming in for
Hmm.
pas deux.
I do.
Trying to do a little spin on my French.
Multi-course meal for this one.
Oh, yes. I always love the part twos because they're so good. You can't have
Yeah.
Marty Blitz without
Mm.
Maryann.
Right.
So
Peas in a
today,
pod.
you guys, we have an iconic culinary businesswoman that really is the heart and soul of Tampa Bay cuisine, alongside Marty. Their story is unbelievable. It's the lesson that you should learn about when you care about somebody, love and respect them. Your relationship can transcend all kinds of things. So enjoy every moment. She's amazing. Make sure you message us, right, Ev, if you have any
That's right.
questions, concerns, ideas,
Yeah,
and get your butt to Mise en place for some foie gras. Ev's going, aren't you?
that's right. Gonna go enjoy the best meal of my life.
There you go. On me. You guys enjoy Maryann. Maryann, welcome to Stick a Fork in It. We're so excited to have you join us.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I love what you guys are doing with this podcast. It's good for food, it's good for guests, it's good for the community. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. We had Marty on he had the Marty Blitz Award with Epic Chef, but you really can't have Marty on without having Maryann. You guys, how many years have you guys been partners again?
Well, Mise en Place will turn 37 in September, which is not too terribly far away.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've known each other for over 40 years and have been collaborating all that time.
I know, and I find it so interesting. You guys were married at one time as well.
Yeah. Yes.
Divorced, stayed partners. The brilliance stays together and the friendship shines on, right?
Yeah, I really believe we were brought together to create Mise en Place. It's just been an absolute partnership and collaboration. And, I truly, after all these years, there is no one that I would rather have as a partner in the back of the house and the kitchen side, both because of his commitment to what we're doing and then just his raw talent, and obviously I have seen him. I mean, I knew him in his apprenticeship going all the way through where he is now. So I have seen, an awful lot. And I saw his podcast and I talked a lot about Chef Sahelka that he trained under. And it was a journey. It was an absolute journey. Yeah. And it's still a journey. And I'm glad that Chef Marty and I are on it together.
Yeah, that's such amazing. It's such an amazing story about true friendships and relationships can kind of survive things if it's, first of all, if it's meant to be and if you put your mind to it. So you guys got together for the first time, started working together in New York. Were you guys in New York? Where were you?
No, he was in New York. When he got to Detroit and did his apprenticeship is where we met. I was a theater major, so I was a server there at the restaurant, and that's where we met. He was apprentice, I was a server.
Okay.
That's how we got together. Yes.
So how did an apprentice and a server become this iconic culinary couple in Tampa Bay? Like, how did you end up, you were a server. How did you end up over and beyond that?
Well, I grew up in the business, actually. My parents either managed or owned a restaurant my entire life. I wanted to get out of the business. I ended up getting this theater degree. I had all these ideas of a variety of things that I wanted to do. And then I married a chef. And it just seemed like, okay, clearly this is the plan. This is what I'm supposed to do. And there is certainly something theatrical about the restaurant and hospitality business. And we are certainly putting on a production every night. So there are combined skills from just watching my parents go through running and owning restaurants, et cetera, for so many years growing up. And then also being and working in their restaurants and then other restaurants. And then, having the training that I did in theater, it's like, kind of put all that together and said, let's do this. There's a tremendous amount of creativity in all aspects of our industry, not just in the kitchens. And so the ability to put that together, the opportunity to be able to use that creativity is really, what's kept me in it. I love the business side of it. It's the hospitality, the service, and the mentoring that is what keeps me going.
So you mentioned your parents. I'm just so intrigued by that. Let's go back to when you were with them before even Marty was even in your imagination. What was home life like owning restaurants? And, were they the type that you still had that meal around the table, or was everybody stopping what they were doing at the restaurant? What was that like?
there were no home meals at the table. By the time I came around I'm the youngest of the family. There were no meals around a family table, or rarely. There were meals around a restaurant table. I mean, I went to the restaurant after work. I did my homework in the corner booth. I fell asleep in the private dining room. I thought you walked into every refrigerator. I was used to, a big dishwasher. I mean, all of those kinds of things. I mean, so it is very natural for me. I mean, to this day, the dining rooms of my restaurants are as comfortable to me as the living rooms of my own home. And for a long time, almost more so, because you just spend more time here. So
Right.
I really inherited a lot of my mother's natural love of hospitality. And then my dad's bean counting head is sort of the combination of what I ended up with. That is what I bring to the party, shall we say, in this restaurant relationship.
So would you say that they inspired you eventually to return to your roots, or with a combination?
No, absolutely. They were absolutely inspired me to do this. I mean, they taught me, I truly believe that they taught me what I know that has been successful. My mother taught me that the customer is always right. And my dad taught me that every dime, nickel, penny matters in this business. Mm-hmm. And I have used those two basic philosophies to turn them into larger philosophies and ways of working. Those things are a part of our mise en place on a daily basis.
So when you guys are in that restaurant, do you have like a favorite memory of being a child and eating with your family?
Yeah, I do actually. What would be fun would be when the restaurant was closed and we would be able to come in the afternoon and make something in this big kitchen where, everything was closed and, you had a chance to get together and you'd be, cooking in this big kitchen and then, go out to a table together and mm-hmm. have dinner. But the being in the kitchen and cooking part and being the usually I was at my age, it was the dishwasher, I would like clean up, the dishes as other people were cooking and things like that. Being able to be a part of that in the closed restaurant, those were the kind of special times.
Unique times. Not everybody gets that wonderful experience cooking together like that in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Right.
Very, very unusual. Right. But that was my life. I mean, that's really what I knew. And it's why I'm so comfortable in restaurants, I think.
Right. It's really almost like you don't know any different. What type of food did your parents' restaurant create?
Well, this was back, the thing that I will remember most, and the place where I grew old enough to actually become a part of real service was, that cuisine we're talking here, the 70s, right? So this was, continental cuisine. It was taking the French and European cuisines into a higher, into American food, right? So it was, prime rib and lobster and fillets and, that kind of thing. And Caesar salad and like the chef place where Marty and I met, Caesar salad and Dover sole and things like that were done tableside, right? And so I learned those things in my parents' restaurant and that kind of, fine dining, but with those types of food in those restaurants.
That's all my favorites. I don't know about you, but everything she just said, I'm in. So I want you to still stay back in time and you are taking a bite of something that's your favorite. What is it?
Back from those days? Oh boy.
What would evoke emotion and memory?
Well, you're gonna laugh at me, but one of the things that we used to make when we were in the kitchens there was my mom made this lima bean casserole that was made with this number 10 can of tomato soup and meatballs and lima beans. And I was a kid, but I loved it. And to this day, if someone asked me, my niece just came down and cooked for me. And she said, "What do you want?" I said, "I really love that lima bean casserole that Grandma used to make." And she made it for me. So
it sounds actually delicious. All the blends of the.
Yeah.
I need to try this, Maryann.
Simple thing, but I remember it. I can see her, sauteing the meatballs in this huge pan on this big stove and opening up a huge can of tomato soup and cooking it down. And
right. So that sounds really unique and delicious. I love that. So, you have been with Feeding Tampa Bay for a really long time. Can you share your introduction to Feeding Tampa Bay?
I actually can. There's a gentleman named Wally Anderson that I still keep in touch with about what's happening at the food bank, who was involved, and a gentleman named Jean Heath, who I met, and they were so sincerely passionate about the mission of feeding those that needed to be fed that I caught on to that passion. And it had always been sort of the tension that was in my own being was that, I practiced my craft and we practiced our craft feeding folks in our fabulous restaurants, right? And these beautiful places where people were coming to celebrate and these amazing meals. But then what about the people that weren't able to come to our dining chairs? What about the people that were not sitting in those chairs? And so we always had a philosophy from the beginning that part of our mission had to be to feed those people that couldn't show up in our dining room chairs. And so when I met these folks, it was then called the Divine Providence Food Bank. And I was like, this is it. This is our chance to make that happen, to make this dual effort for the rest of our careers happen. And so I got involved.
You did. And I know that you, from even a leadership perspective, you became so passionate about the food bank. My gosh, you were on the board of directors for a number of years.
Yeah, like I think I was chair for like 8 years until finally it made sense for things to move along. And it's really what happened was when we had some struggling times, as I'm sure, many organizations do, certainly, this one did. And we needed to move to that next place. And there was an event then called Taste of the NFL, which was an event that was done in every, during Super Bowl, every NFL, wherever the Super Bowl was, right? So one of the times that it came to Tampa Bay, left, I believe it was like $240,000 in their contribution here. And that was that seed money that allowed us to move to the new warehouse. And then new people came into leadership, and then it just took the top off. And then, of course, now, Thomas Mance and Kelly and team are really taking the top off. And now it's a whole nother level of inspiration. I mean, as I was inspired way back then when this was a small group of people that said we can make a difference by creating a food bank here. And now what we're doing is we can really solve real problems in our society. That's what's happening now. It's as amazing then as it was now, and vice versa. So, so I've stayed involved. We early, creating fundraisers. Of course, I came from my business. So the notion of being able to create some events and do some fundraisers is how I really then I think made the biggest impact, is starting to share my passion then with other people in the community who I met through my restaurants, which is, the restaurants are just an amazing vehicle to be a part of the community. And that was one of the examples. We reached out to the clients we knew and we said, let me tell you about this project. And people got involved. I'll never forget the Furmans giving us our first $15,000 sponsorship and helping us to create one of our first dinners.
You are the founder, from what I understand from our team, of Fork Fight that still happens today and generated the most dollars in history this year, over $300,000 at one sit-down event.
It's amazing, isn't it?
And you started it. Like, I kind of have chills. I'm like,
well, so do I, because, but what you do is, you share energy, you share energy around a subject and other people pick up on it. And I can just think of all the amazing people over time that have participated in doing this. And it just goes to show you that if you're willing to give of yourself, it may be money, it may be time, it was art, it was creativity, it was, whatever it was, people were willing all these years to give to something. And then look at the momentum. It goes to show you if you're willing to get started, first of all, but then you're willing to keep going, the momentum now is just tremendous.
It is.
Oh, it was so exciting this year.
Yeah, it was such a great event. We have on our YouTube where you can see what went on there at Feeding Tampa Bay's YouTube. But it's just an iconic event in Tampa Bay. And thank you for starting it and having that vision and all those wonderful connections where you invite peers of your own to join alongside you and help make sure people have healthy food. I looked up the definition for mise en place, and there's an entire and I want you to go into detail, but it's a meaning. There's a meaning. There's a lifestyle. It's a thing. And it's not just the name of your restaurant. Can you tell us more about Mise en Place, what it means to you?
Absolutely. I'll tell you, first of all, when Marty was the one that wanted to name the restaurant Mise en Place, and it was partly because of what Chef Miles had drilled into his head, Mise en Place, Mise en Place, Mise en Place. And I was thinking, oh man, we're going to name it Mise en Place. I mean, these are back in the days of the yellow pages, okay? This is the 80s, right? And I'm thinking, people aren't going to know how to spell it, so they can't look it up. You know, they're going to think that we are strictly French cuisine because it's a term from the French, and we weren't. We're everything rooted in the French, as all great cuisine comes from, but that's not, you know, what all of our cuisine is. And I thought it's just going to be confusing, but he was so passionate about it. And one of the lessons I learned in business there is that if you're going to be an independent entrepreneur, having something that you are so passionate about to drive you can make what might seem like a dangerous decision great, because if it matters to people, it's going to matter to others. It matters to you, it's going to matter to others. And so it did. And it now has become really a driving force in our lives, and it has become a thing. I mean, we talk all the time about, do you have your mise en place? Is it, you got your mise? You know, whether we're starting a project, we're starting a night, it's a recipe, it's an event. Are we ready? Do we have our mise en place? And that includes, you know, both product and the setting, but it also includes you, your mentality. Do you have your mise en place? Is your head on straight? Are you clear? What do you need to do there? And out in the world now, I mean, people have taken it to, you know, mise en placing their lives, you know?
Right.
It's a kind of organization, though, that is more than just about getting organized. It's about having a through line. It's about figuring out what the purpose is and then attaching everything to the purpose. And so when we talk about doing anything, I will say, you know, well, where's the mise in that? Meaning, what is it connected to? Random things, they can be great ideas. You can have random creative ideas, but if they're not connected to something, they're not on that through line, then they don't really have their mise in this scenario, and they'll never be as successful. I mean, they might do okay. They'll never be as successful because they're not being fed by that core, you know, of what is this connected to. And we do that when we do a cocktail list, a wine list, a dish, a room, how you're setting it, what does it look like? It all has to be connected to something. And it also keeps you from doing just random ego things, right? You know, because it says, oh, I want this. I want to see myself do this. It keeps you from doing that kind of thing because it all connects back to the foundation of things. And I think that's a part of the mise en place. But it's one of the first things that we teach anyone that comes to work for us, front, back of the house, no matter where it is, you know, what's that place that you work in? What does it look like? And that's everything from your station to your head, right? What does your head look like?
Right. And you talk about that you do this in the restaurant, and that, you know, you guys together have mentored so many incredible chefs that have moved on to start their own brands, that are having success, receiving awards, that really loop everything back to being at mise en place. We're going to have a chef of yours on in a few moments, Chef Ben, that he's out at the Dewey. Tell us a little bit about Chef Ben's history, and then we'll hear from him.
You know, it's interesting. I actually love listening to Ben talk about his Mise experience and what mise en place has meant to him. And I have some other folks that work at the Dewey, Wayne, who's going to be Chef Wayne, who's actually going to be cooking next week. Okay, he's at the Dewey. He works for Chef Ben. And when I hear the two of them talking about, you know, this is how we do it, and this is how we learned it at Mise, and this is the purpose, and this is why it happens. I mean, Ben really adopted the core of this. It spoke to him. He was an art major that then got into cooking. And so again, the core concept of this mise en place and what it means, and it being a way of working and thinking and acting, he just really adopted it, and he has taught it to, you know, then he got Wayne, who'd also worked at mise en place, that came over to the Dewey. And so, you know, they're just really turning it into a culture there as well. And it's really fun to listen to him talk about it. And it's really enjoyable to see what he creates because of it.
Well, no further ado, we're going to introduce you to Chef Ben. So, Ed, we were just with Marty Blitz. The Marty Blitz Award was given out right? And then
That's
I
right.
know we have Mise coming in for the All Stars for Epic Chef. But when we talked about it, we talked about mentoring folks. And Maryann thought it would be amazing for us to interview Chef Ben and let him share his story, because I think he was one of the OGs. Welcome to the show, Chef Ben. How's your day?
Hi, thanks for having me. Great to be here. So far, so good. We're rolling out a new menu tonight, so I'm in
Oh,
the thick of it as always.
so let all of our viewers and listeners know where you're at right
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm in Pasagrille, sunny Pasagrille, Florida, St. Pete Beach,
now.
at the
Yes,
Dewey
at the
Beach
Dewey.
Restaurant.
Okay, I'm sorry. What's the name of the restaurant?
The Dewey Beach Restaurant.
The Dewey. So tell us about your mise en place story. It seems like everybody, they've been around for so long, everybody has a mise en place story of some sort.
Yeah, everyone's worked there at some point, and it's not uncommon for certain people to work for Marty and Maryann for a very long time. I think I've been with them about 10 years at this point, although I took a couple of breaks here and there. So I think I started working for them somewhere around 2013. I don't know if that sounds right to you, Mary. I can't even
That
remember
sounds
anymore.
about right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I took a short break where I moved out to the West Coast for about a year. And when I moved back, they built this glorious restaurant, this beautiful building out here. And I've sort of been stuck on the place ever since.
It's calm now, huh?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
it's a beautiful place to land. Sorry.
Awesome. One thing that Marty shared with us is sometimes you switch, you go around, but you gain experience from every place you go. So tell us about learning with Marty and Maryann, but then what did you learn from going out to the coast? So start with Marty.
Well, I mean, I think I always had an interest in working at Mise en Place because of just its, reputation in the community. And at the time, I was sort of desperate for some acumen of my own. So it seemed like the right place to go to get to the next level in my career. And I think as soon as I got an opportunity to get in the door there, I've sort of been on it ever since. And I think, I worked in the restaurant proper for several years and just did the sort of line work there, which was really just sharpening my teeth because my skill level needed some work at that point. And then when I sort of felt like I had a sort of a good understanding of how the restaurant operated, I wanted to move out into their catering division. So I went and worked at their space at the Tampa Museum of Art for a while and did a lot of high-end event work, which I think gave me another whole set of experiences moving from working mostly with Chef to working with Maryann and her knowledge of high-end event service.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went to the West Coast, I think I just needed some time off, really, just away from the business. I didn't cook at all. I sort of did odd jobs and handyman work and stuff like that. But I think I got to a point where I needed to kind of clear my head because I had been going on for 7 or 8 years doing really fast-paced restaurant work, and I kind of wanted to figure out what was next. So then when I came back to Florida, I think it was just sort of kismet that they had this fabulous restaurant built here and that it needed someone to sort of look after it and nurture the food program. And sort of, I think my strength in that has been working a lot with Marty and sort of knowing what the value system of the original restaurant is and being able to bring it out here to Pasagrille and sort of translate it into a more casual environment. And that's been the real joy of it, is like taking a lot of the things that I learned from Marty and then creating some form of simulacrum, for mise en place in a place that's a lot more casual than downtown or South Tampa.
But it still is creative, and the flavors are amazing. When you sat down with us, you said you were getting a new menu together. Can you share the types of food that you're creating there at the Dewey?
Yeah, I mean, we've been sort of trying to work on that organically. We've learned a lot as time has gone by, and obviously we had COVID and hurricanes and all sorts of other biblical plagues that have happened over the years trying to get the place open. But I think, trying to find what the style and spirit of the food here should be, and really like what we should do during season when we have a lot of travelers here, and then what we should do during the summer when things cool off a bit and the weather gets obscenely hot, and then we have more like the local crowd looking in on us. So
now we've challenged Shannon, Ev. Now I've challenged Chef Ben to create new menus every few weeks out at the Dewey, and we're doing something now for our summer program called Discover the Dewey in the Summer, which changes the cuisine to be even lighter and just easy and as interesting as ever, but also giving people a chance to come back, our locals to come back again and again over summer, because it's a different kind of business. And because, again, we're just responding in so many ways to our climate. And so, Ben certainly experienced an ever-changing menu at Mise en Place when he was here. He can talk about, what it was like when Marty wrote a new menu and how you just, went off on and figured it out and made a dish and, collaboratively made a dish. And so he's doing that now for the summer program there, giving everybody new chances to experience the Dewey in new ways.
So what's an example of something on that menu currently?
Well, we're putting it out tonight, so nothing's exciting. Actually been plated yet. But it's sort of, we're going to have like a sort of theme for each one that kind of runs throughout the menu. Mm-hmm. And so this is sort of like Pan-Latin cuisine, Spanish food, Santa Fe and New Mexico has always been like a big inspiration for me as a cook. So I think, that's part of the inspiration for this menu that we're doing tonight. I think the plate that I really like that we're doing is it's like a grilled salmon that we're doing on sort of a succotash made with colossal Peruvian corn. Mm. And we're serving that in a zucchini gazpacho with some grilled spring onions and some crushed Marcona almond.
Wow, that sounds delicious.
Just fresh, summery stuff. That's what we're trying to do. All of the different locales that I'm going to be using for inspiration this summer have, that extremely hot climate that we're enjoying right now. So sort of stuff to cool off too.
So Chef, tell us a little bit about what it's like to work under someone who has created such a reputation in the area, and maybe some of the things that you learned from him, or the top things that he influenced you with.
Well, I think the first thing when you go to work for a James Beard winning chef, the important thing, at least the success that I've had in it, is realizing that you're never right about anything. and really just get yourself into the headspace where you're open to constructive criticism and willing to learn. I think the willingness to learn and be open to new information is that's the crux in this business. If you can't work your way past it, I don't think that being prideful is really terribly helpful. So I knew going into it that I had a lot to learn. The way that Marty, at least at the time, it's been a while since I've worked for him directly, but at the time, he would make changes sort of like every week. He would have a handful of changes that he would make to the menu. And so when you came in, he would give you a slip of paper that had the new plates on it. And that was all the direction that you really got. So then you had to go figure out how to make this vinaigrette. You had to figure out how to make this side. And there were other great cooks there. You could ask them for direction. And then you would sort of make it, and Marty would tell you if it was good and it made sense, or if it wasn't and what was wrong with it. And he's very honest, which is helpful when you're trying to learn a lot in a short period of time. And so we're sort of operating the same way here now. I've taken that and sort of I like to work with my cooks the same way. like involve them in the conversation, at least. Maybe not like holistically, but like allow them to have ownership over their own part of it, and focus on individuals that have the palate and like the appropriate mindset to like work in that environment and take some ownership over the things that they're making, because it's really like a lot of interesting stuff comes from that. And I know that like when I was doing preparations for Marty's menus, I was able to glean a lot just from the trial and error of it, you know. So I try to incorporate that in how we do business here. It certainly is a lot easier for the cooks. They're all really excited about the summer menu format because they're excited by the idea of, you know, making a lot of new fresh preparations all the time and trying out new plating. And I think that sort of engagement is really important and really something that's disappearing from the restaurant scene, and probably why I've been with Mise en Place restaurants for so long, because it's sort of a last bastion for that in my view, you know, real chef driven culture from the bottom up, you know, and engagement with everyone involved in the restaurant, you know.
Well, and I think too, respecting it as an art, right? Respecting it as an art from the start. It sounds like you were brought up where it's almost like an epic chef every week or so, where he's bringing something into the table that you don't know what's coming your way, and it's like, figure it out. Let me see how you do. That's a lot of pressure to live under, but I also feel like it's allowing. I mean, chefs are artists. You know, you do these magnificent things with flavors, and it's giving you the freedom to learn. When we talked to Marty, we talked about the show The Bear that everybody's watching, right? And you know how that gentleman learned in a very intense and insulting environment. And I guess that was Marty's first experience. And we asked him if he trickled down a little bit. Was it so rough? And he was like, I think so. He was really funny about it. So it seems like get better. And now you're moving on to your own kitchen and allowing the creativity and for your up and coming chefs to have a voice.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen the second season of The Bear. I watched the first one, and I would love to find $400,000 hidden in tomato cans or whatever it is that happened there. But you know, with Marty, I think you know, Marty is stern, but respect is very important to him, and that's both given and received. You know, I think over the years we've always had like a respectful relationship. And that's always been the baseline for everything. It's sort of, you can't, the other thing I'll say too is Marty's not a terribly complimentary person. And I actually really appreciate that about him, because when he does say something nice about your work, like you really know that he means it. There's like a lot of flattery in this business, and the compliments aren't really terribly helpful. I mean, I always appreciate it, but
Sure.
You know, it's the negatives that you learn and grow from, you know? And so Marty will always tell you the truth. He comes into the restaurant now and tries things, and he'll be really blunt with me about it. And I find that helpful, you know. A lot of people find that threatening, but I never have. I've always really appreciated it. So.
Well, that sounds like a very cool life lesson that people can take, is just, you know, being respectfully honest, not wasting anyone's time, helps them grow even better. Chef Ben, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to have to come out to the Dewey and try that new menu. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, come on by. We're working on cool stuff.
We would love it.
Thanks.
Can't wait to come over. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. And we're back. So we just finished talking to Chef Ben. Maryann, you guys have, for me, it started in the 90s with the restaurant that you're sitting in, coming to your restaurant and really experiencing really good wines for the first time. I've learned so much from being younger and learning about good food and good wines. And foie gras. I told Ed he's got to go and have, but I'm going to take him. I'm taking him to Mise en Place.
Yes, come on. We want to entertain you.
Oh, it is so, I love it. I would have it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner at times. But there's more than your restaurant there. we know you guys started in a garage. Like it's such an incredible story, and you guys can listen back to our part one. This is part two. But tell us about the brands that have expanded past that catering, big restaurant, and then now you have even more.
Yeah, we've become a small hospitality company, but we are still, so much just us, and we're still really independent. It's all done by us. It's one of us. Someone's got to be passionate about it. That's why it's so great having Ben at the Dewey, because somebody's got to be passionate about it, or it's not happening. David Myers, who is manager here at Mise now, was at our airport location. So right now we call it the mothership. Mise en Place here on Kennedy Boulevard, and Grand Central is called the mothership. But we have the Dewey restaurant, which is located at the Berkeley Beach Club, our little small foray into the hotel end of our hospitality, travel and tourism business. With the Berkeley Beach Club is a small 12-room boutique hotel with a beautiful rooftop bar that has amazing views. And the Dewey is the ground floor restaurant there, serving dinner and brunch, fabulous brunch on Saturday and Sunday there. We also have the cafe Mise en Place at the airport, which has been a really fascinating experience. And I think, being a part of what has happened in the airport over the last few years is amazing. But what's really cool about being at the airport is that literally you're meeting people from all over the world all the time, and you're giving them a chance to take a little mise en place from Tampa Bay back wherever they're going. They take a story, they take an experience, they take a palate memory back wherever they're going. And that's why we really, really love being at the airport. So that's the portfolio right now. We're still doing, catering, as you said, was the beginning for us. And we are still doing that work. We do, of course, a lot of private dining and event work, both at the Berkeley Beach Club, Dewey, and at Mise en Place. But we also, doing off-premise events. We have, like right now we're working on planning a New Year's Eve wedding for some folks that are the son and his fiance of clients that we've had for probably 30 years.
Wow.
And that person has, started coming here as a young kid. We just catered a rehearsal dinner for someone who literally started dining with us when he was 6 months old,
Wow.
So there's something cool. Yeah. There's something cool about being around for that amount of time, because you celebrate people's life experiences with them. And it's really meaningful. It adds a level of meaning that I think we're very blessed to have in this business, that you don't get in a lot of other industries. There is something that nourishes us at the same time we're nourishing others in a meaningful way. And that's what Marty and I both still love. And that's really why we're still doing it. I mean,
and growing and just incredible at it for almost how many years now?
37 in September.
37 years in September.
Yeah.
And you guys have really been at the top of the list since that opening Mise en Place.
Yeah.
You were really the high-end experience for Tampa for me as a young adult. So we want to thank
customers and staff. I mean, we really do feel like we helped a lot of both clients and staff grow up in this industry. I mean, we're talking about Marty has mentored so many people. And then I think about, Ben Carson, who started as a server with me, left here having been manager and wine director, and now runs one of the most important importing companies of Portuguese and Spanish wines to the United States, living in New York City, doing amazing stuff, started as a server. I mean, we can name, Katie Glenn's, David Madeira, they started at Bone Wine Bar. They're both former employees here. I mean, that is really, especially at this stage, I guess, is to be able to look out on the horizons of Tampa Bay, which has become such a great culinary scene, and know that you had something to do with it, and that all that stuff you shared with those people mattered. And, going back around to the food bank, I can picture all of us from all of those years doing one event or another, one fork fight or another, and I can see us all doing it. And how much those events, I used to have a staff person that's also off doing great things now, started as a server, was a manager, that used to say at those events for the food bank, yeah, it's this stuff that brings us together.
It really is. And those that you guys have mentored now on their own, when they have their own brands, they're building their own companies, give their time and treasure to the food bank, and join us for Epic Chef every year in 8 years, we have had someone who was trained at Mise compete at Epic Chef. It's just amazing that the really the culinary imprint that you have put on our community and continue to do so and keep that bar raised for everyone else.
Yeah, cool.
So in closing, our time is wrapping up. In closing, we always kind of ask this question because I find it interesting, right, Ev?
Yeah, definitely.
So you go ahead and ask the question, Ev. You've been kind of quietly listening today as we're talking about the old days that when I used to go to pizza bar.
That's right.
But
our shared experience. See, that's Ev. That's why you have to come dine with us, because then we have same shared experience.
Right.
Right. Yes,
absolutely. Yeah. And the question kind of ties in well to that, because it is about, you kind of having people around for a meal. So, if you had a table with space for 4 people and you're one of those people, and you can invite any 3 people from past, present, future, anywhere in the world, what 3 people would you want to share an amazing meal with if you could?
Okay. I have an answer, but after talking, I'm hoping I can give you 2 separate answers, just because
we'll allow it.
Because the conversation that we've had today is what inspired the second answer. And my first answer is there's 4 people plus me, right?
3 plus you, ideally.
3 plus me.
You might be able to pull up a chair if you need
people,
to.
No, that's fine. 4 people total. Like that, right? I can do the math. It would be interestingly Anne Frank. Maybe as an adult spirit. I when I was in my theater degree, I played her, and so I studied her and her spirit a lot, and I would love that. Danny Meyer, because I have such respect for him and what he's done in the industry, and we share philosophies about our industry. And Julia Child, because I think she was fabulous, and she was a woman early that did amazing things for women in the culinary arts. So that would be my choice. And then, the second thing would be only 3 of us, though, would be my mom and dad at a table with them being able to see everything that happened since they helped us started.
What they started.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are big.
And finally, what would you serve?
Well,
I know with mom and dad, it's going to be the casserole.
It is
lima beans. Yeah,
that's right. It's going to be the lima bean casserole.
Right.
And then the other, I don't cook at all, like 0. Okay, so I would ask Marty and Ben to make whatever they wanted to, because I never tell a chef what to cook.
There you go.
That's probably good advice
for us.
Yeah.
2 lessons for us: never tell a chef what to cook, and find your Mise.
Yeah.
It's really important. Thank you, Maryann. Yes. We love and appreciate all of your work, for being with us at Feeding Tampa Bay for so many years and loyally still staying beside our sides. We thank you.
Well, thank you for the amazing work that all of you creative folks are gathered there together doing right now. It is inspiring. So blessings to all of you. Continued good stuff.
Likewise. Thank you.
You as well. Can't wait to see what's next for Mise en Place.
You can learn more about Feeding Tampa Bay and how to join the movement at feedingtampabay.org. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok at Feeding Tampa Bay.